Does he vote? Like, can you be with somebody who does not actively participate and exercise their right to vote? And then to take it a step further, could you be with somebody who voted for demons? Okay, y'all know who the demon is. And I was like, oh, this is different. Because of who I've known my friend to be, I was very taken aback that she would be in romantic relationship with someone who was on opposite sides of the issues as she was. But what you desire in a romantic partner, can you still have those things if their interests don't align with you politically? Or when it comes to like a soulful heart connection, and it's like, well, that's my person. Like, he fills my cup. He feeds me spiritually. He looks out for me. He protects me. He holds space for me. But he a Trump supporter. It's like, y'all, I'm just very confused. And so I don't know that I could ever romantically be with someone who supported somebody who was just so against me in every way. Is it okay for us to just let our friends walk around all willy-nilly, uninformed, unregistered, and not voting? Can you be friends with somebody if they're not voting? I feel like to go through life only entertaining people who have the same opinion or experiences as you is a very limiting experience. This one is for the socially responsible millennial. And this one is for the millennial who is confused about whether or not that is important to them in a friendship or a relationship. Let's talk about it. Let's go beneath the seams. Life can be so complex. The human experience is far more expansive than what we can see, and we spend so much time just trying to figure it out. We put on makeup, nice clothing, and we go out into the world trying to hold it all together, when beneath those seams, we are being ripped apart. Some of the ripping is self-inflicted, some of it is because of the pressure of society, but all of it is limiting. Limiting in our quest to just simply be who we truly are. We're more complex than we give ourselves credit for. We fill our brains with popular sayings like, oh, it ain't that serious, loosen up, or just live a little. But life in itself is a deep, non-surface level experience, and sometimes it can be pretty serious. So often we force ourselves to only exist at the surface, never allowing ourselves to be fully exposed. We let the layers pile up until the pressure becomes too much to bear, and then we rip. Sometimes into shreds, and a lot of the times in silence. Beneath means to go below the surface, and seams are what are supposed to keep us joined together. Because we are taught, no matter what, you just have to keep yourself together. We create this image, never letting people in, never going beneath the seams. I don't know if we ever get the answers we expect from life, but I'm starting to find peace in the process of just figuring it out. Instead of forcing the complexities of this human experience to be hidden, let's peel back the layers and go beneath them. Beneath the Seams, a love letter to millennials who are just trying to figure it out. Beneath the Seams, the podcast, now available on all platforms. Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Beneath the Seams. I am your host, Kayla Riggins, and this is the safe seat. This is the scene seat. This is the seat where I get all up in y'all business. I let y'all in mine. And we really have somewhat uncomfortable conversations. We talk about the things people don't be wanting to talk about. And the goal here is to peel back the layers of all of the things that we wear to protect us out in the world and get really personal. Have conversations that help us connect deeper with ourselves, but ultimately deeper with each other so that we can live a more limitless, unapologetic, abundant life, okay? Things are rarely what they actually seem in life. So over here, we have these conversations where we go beneath those seams to really talk about the things that we are going through, okay? And today is no different because we are all going through a crazy time in this country. It is election season. We are just a few days away. So this is my go ahead and get out and vote message. And it's interesting because, you know, the pod doesn't have like a specific theme. We talk about things that we're actually going through, and we have conversations around how to navigate those things. And this was something that has been on my master list of topics for a while. But I try to be very selective about what I touch because the internet is a crazy place, okay? And I want to be able to talk about things in a way that don't make the podcast that niche, right? So I want to be able to talk about hot topics. Like if Beyonce says something that's relevant to my life, I want to be able to talk about that. I want to be able to talk about TV and different things that are going on in the world, but I don't want it to be like a hot topics based thing. And so, when trying to think about how I wanted to tackle the election and voting and everything that's going on in our country, I thought about what I'm actually going through in life. That is the basis of this show, right? And so, I told y'all I've been back on these date naps. A couple episodes back, I took you through the rundown of everything that I was learning. And one thing that I'm also learning is what compatibility really looks like at a macro level. And so when we think about partnership, when we think about romantic companionship, I don't know if we often think about, well, girl, do you vote? Does he vote? Like, can you be with somebody who does not actively participate and exercise their right to vote? And then to take it a step further, could you be with somebody who voted for demons? Okay, y'all know who the demon is. It got me to thinking about having a larger conversation about this, and the universe and the powers that be just united because I wanted to have a conversation about it, and then experiences in my life started happening that aided in me being able to really have a more expansive conversation. And so maybe about a month or so ago, we all have those friends that we talk like different things about. Some friends, like you can really get your spiritual bag on with them. Some friends, you can really get your TV talk on with them. Some friends, you can talk about everything. Some friends, it's politics and social issues and what's going on with the world. And I want to start by saying that my personal stance is I exercise my right to vote. I know there's a lot of controversy about whether or not it matters and all of it's rigged and they already know who's going to win and the electoral college decides it. And while all of those things may be true, I am personally going to do something that my ancestors fought for me to be able to do. I feel like it is my rite of passage to pay it forward for what the history of my people is in this country and the history of what they've been through. So I feel that it is my social responsibility to let my voice be heard. I'm also the person who wants to have the right to complain. And so I'm going to go to a restaurant and I'm going to pay my money for the food because I want the right to be able to complain and send it back if it ain't hitting. And if you go to a restaurant and you eat for free, you can't really complain. And so in this country, I want to be able to have the right to say, I don't like what's going on here. This is wrong. We need to roll back this. Here's my opinion on that. And I think in order for me to be able to have the right to complain about it, I need to be able to have casted my vote and have my voice in it. And so that's just the type of person I am. It's like, you're going to complain about it or you're going to do something about it. And in a very big way, voting is doing something about it. So that's my personal stance, right? And so when I started to have this conversation with this friend, she is also a very woke, as we say in the culture, person, and she votes. She's very much in tune of what's going on around her. And as millennials, some of us, we're just not into it. And not just as millennials, a lot of older people too. Like some people just, there's a population of the world that just does not think that it really carries any weight in their life because they don't actually see the effects of who's in office and who's not. And again, I'm not here to judge. That's your prerogative. I don't judge. That's Jesus' job. My life, my salvation. You make your choice. But with this particular friend, she revealed to me that she was very much undecided, that she was very much not on board with voting for Madam Vice President. And so it just opened up a larger conversation. And I wanted to hear her out because you guys know I pride myself on being inclusive of all thoughts, experiences, and opinions. I hate when things are divisive. And so I never want to shun anybody because of their opinion. Even if I may disagree, I never want to disrespect you by not at least hearing you out. And so I cracked the joke with her because she's a soror. And I was like, why you not voting for that lady? Because she an AKA. We Deltas around here. But that AKA got my vote. Okay, just saying. But I cracked the joke and she was like, no, I'm not sold yet on her policies and what she represents. And so we were able to have a larger conversation about it. And I was like, you know what? I respect it. I respect where you're coming from. You've laid out very tangible, practical examples of why you are undecided, and I respect it. So here's where it got a little juicy. She is in a relationship. And so maybe like a week after that phone conversation, my phone rang and it was FaceTime and he was in the background. And because we talk shit about a lot of shit anyway, but because we had previously talked about, the election and what was going on, I said to her, I answered the phone and I said something about the election, like just naturally. And so her boyfriend was in the background and she was like, see, I told you this is the person who I talked to it about. So basically, y'all, we found ourselves in an exchange, a healthy one, of thoughts and opinions because he was an avid Duck supporter. Donald Duck, Donald Trump. I'm not gonna even be disrespectful to Donald Duck like that. Donald Trump. He was an avid Trump supporter. And I was like, oh, this is different. Because of who I've known my friend to be, I was very taken aback that she would be in romantic relationship with someone who was on opposite sides of the issues as she was. And so I engaged in conversation with him because I'll talk to anybody. I'll talk to a tree. Okay. I engaged in conversation with him because I want to hear you out. I feel like to go through life only entertaining people who have the same opinion or experiences as you is a very limiting experience. Hey girl, I know. You like, Kayla, what are you doing interrupting my episode? I know you had your snacks and you was all in it, but hear me out. After this episode is over, I don't want the conversation to end here. So I want to invite you. This is your exclusive invitation to be a part of my community because you are my people. And that's the name of my Patreon community, my people. So over there, you get access to exclusive content. We have monthly virtual dates where we connect and we have these real conversations. We keep the topics going. You get to have Q&A with me. You also get to meet and connect with each other. And pretty soon, some events are going to be happening too. So if this is your type of content, if you like deep conversations, if you want to create meaningful connections that really just help us be more of ourselves and be better to each other so that we can really experience the beauty that is life, I want you over there a part of my people because we see each other, okay? So make sure you click that link, join my Patreon community, and I will see you over there. Listen, don't meet me there, beat me there, okay? All right, go ahead, pick your snack back up, get back to the episode. And so I want to hear how you think. I want to understand how you think. And it was so interesting because I said, before we got into the nitty gritty of it, I said, well, who are you voting for? And he said, man, Donald Trump. And it was given like, F you mean? Like, it was given duh. Like, there weren't any other choices. Like, the choice was obvious. And I was very taken aback by that because I'm like, it's one thing for you to be voting for him, but your attitude around it was like, duh. And I wanted to hear more about where he was coming from. And for the sake of our personal relationship, I won't divulge too many of the details, but the things that he talked about were so masculine. There were things that I never considered. So he talked a lot about the military and the army and the ability for transgender people to be in the army and how that could be scary. And I said to myself, I said, wow, as a woman, I never thought about that. But it's because I won't have to go to war. Like if we are, a draft is enlisted, women are the last people to go. And so it opened my mind to this idea, like, first of all, men are from Venus, women are from Mars, whatever the saying is, men are from Jupiter, women are from Mars, men are from Mars, women are from Jupiter, whatever it is, we from two different planets. That's been a known fact since about kindergarten. But it's very interesting because this is a educated, astute, active participant in society, a productive participant of society. So it's interesting to hear how not only do men and women think differently in terms of dating and how we should approach love and happiness and marriage, but y'all also think completely differently about everything because going to war never crossed my mind. And that's because it didn't have to. And so we went on to talk about, of course, issues that really bother me in regards to our bodies as women and being able to choose what happens with our bodies. And that was one of my main talking points in terms of my advocacy for Madam Vice President. And he was like, I understand, I feel you, but that wasn't a really big issue to him. And I think it's because he's not a woman. And so it just got me to thinking, in all respect to him, right? Before that conversation, I don't know that I could ever romantically be with someone who supported somebody who was just so against me in every way. I feel like to be a Trump supporter is to be anti-woman and to be anti-black. Now, to hear his opinions and his experiences, and to know my friend and how much weight she carries and how much I respect and regard her, when he got off the line, I said, bitch, I said, this has opened up my mind to this concept that does compatibility with a romantic partner extend to political issues, religious issues, and things that are outside of the confines of what we are taught that romance and romantic compatibility looks like? Because I never would have pegged, like, y'all gotta know this friend. I never would have pegged her as the girl to even entertain somebody who was really pro-Trump like that. And so because she did, and because I know she loved her man, I was like, oh, wow. And so we went on to have a further conversation about that. I was like, how do y'all deal? Like, how does that work within relationship? And she was like, we collide, we butt heads. But at the very end of the day, I let him be him and vote his interests, and he allows me to be me, because it does not affect our household. It does not affect our compatibility in terms of what he provides and how he treats me as a man. And I was like, wait a minute. That raises the point, which is the conversation that I was so excited to have with you guys today. It's like, when you think about, and I don't have a lot of answers in this episode, these are really just thoughts. But when you write down your list, and I don't mean like he needs to be this, he needs to be 6 foot, he needs to make 6 figures, not that type of list. But we all have that like figurative list of desires, things that we want in companionship and compatibility. And so when you look at your list, do you consider politics? Do you consider religion? I want to have a separate episode about, could you date somebody who wasn't the same religion as you? Or could you even date someone who didn't believe in God? That takes it to a whole nother level, right? But like, are these things that are societal? I believe it's your social responsibility. But could you date someone who didn't vote at all? Could you date someone who didn't believe in the democracy, who just didn't care? And so it got me to thinking. So as I pondered on those thoughts, life went on. I went to swiping along on these apps. So I met a couple of people in person. Thank God for that. I have to give y'all an update about the dating. But I've met a couple of people in person. Have been doing a little bit of hanging out. It's homecoming season. And so those conversations also led to, of course, we are in a climate where every single day it's what's being talked about. And so one guy I matched with from the app, we were talking about voting, and he said to me, he said, I've never ever voted for anybody. He was like, I have never. And I think he was maybe 31, somewhere up in there. He was a couple of years younger than me. I do remember that standing out, because I'm like, oh, younger, this is different. Mm-hmm. But he was like, I've never ever voted for anybody. Like, I've never exercised my right to vote. And I was like, well, are you even registered? He was like, I don't even know. And if I am, I didn't do it. And I was just like, wow. Now, mind you, at this point in the conversation, he and I hadn't had a great conversation. He was intellectual. He was well-spoken. He was well-rounded. We talked about music. We talked about God. We talked about dreams, ambitions, family stuff, all of that. And then we get to this point in the conversation, and I was like, And so again, now I'm thinking, and I'm reverting back to the conversation that I was having with my friend and her man. And I'm like, me and this guy were vibing. This was a connection. If we were to, let's say, hypothetically speaking, down the line, start dating, get serious, would he be okay with my influence on wanting him to exercise his right to vote? And would I be okay with his adamancy, if that's a word, about not voting? Like, would I be okay if he stood his ground on the fact that I don't vote? And so I said to him, I was like, well, why? I'm just curious, why? And he was like, the life that I live, that doesn't affect me. He was like, who's in there? What goes on? It just doesn't affect my real world. And I also thought that was very interesting because so many people have that opinion. I'm of the belief that in some way it affects us all. But it's interesting to me when people have that opinion where no matter what happens, no matter who wins, who loses, it does not affect me. I think that might be a safer point historically, but I think today, with so much on the line, so much at stake, and so much of the trying to go back rhetoric, trying to revert and trying to stray away from the progress that we've made over the years, I think to be a person of color, to be a black person first, then to be a person of color, and to be a woman, I just think it's crazy if you identify as any of those people to feel safe in it won't affect me either way. But at the same time, I respected his opinion. He wasn't being an asshole. It didn't come from a place of it's stupid. You know, there was no judgment for me having a passion for it. He was just like, it's not for me. So, okay, boom, we moved on. So then I was like, I wonder. So now I'm back on the phone with my friend and I'm telling her about it. I'm back on the phone with my friend whose boyfriend is a Trump supporter. And so I was like, how does this like affect y'all's ability to still feel like y'all are aligned on the same morals and core values? And so we started to kind of separate the two, basically like church and state. And it's this whole idea of what fills you up, like what you desire from. I use a man because that's what I like. I like men. I date men. I want a man. So whatever, insert whatever it is for you. But what you desire in a romantic partner, can you still have those things if their interests don't align with you politically? So can I still feel safe and protected by you? Can you still be my confidant? Can you still be my best friend? Can you still provide for me? Can you still hold space for me and have capacity and emotional capacity for me if you go in there and push Trump on that ballot? And y'all, I think the answer is yes, right? So I think we have to explore when we say have my best interests at heart, because we all want a safe place to land. But there's like this weird juxtaposition between if I know you'll have my back, if I know you pulling up with a smoking gun if I need you, if I know that you are going to hold me down and I feel safe and secure with you, but you go and vote for someone whose interests are not in my benefit and I'm your partner, is that a contradiction? Like, do the two conflict? And I think that's where I'm conflicted because I don't know. In your day-to-day life, going back to the young man's point that I matched with on the app, in your day-to-day life, who you vote into office does not directly affect your day-to-day partnership with your man. It affects everything around y'all, right? So how you prepare for the future, starting a family, buying a house, your finances, your taxes, all of those issues it affects. But those are so macro. How much weight do we allow them to have in the conversation when it comes to the lifestyle that you want to live and how the government can affect that lifestyle? Or when it comes to like a soulful heart connection and it's like, well, that's my person. Like he fills my cup. He feeds me spiritually. He looks out for me. He protects me. He holds space for me. But he a Trump supporter. It's like, y'all, I'm just very confused. And so I want y'all to tap in the comments and let me know, what are your thoughts on this? Like, have you experienced this? And do you think you would be able to really be in intimate relationship with someone who had different political views as you? And so then it brings me to the friendship side of it, right? I want to talk more about religion and stuff like that. I have had friends who didn't necessarily subscribe to a religion or believe in God. Now, they were not atheists because that's a whole different story. So they weren't like demons and they didn't practice devil worshiping or they didn't actively practice disbelief. They were just kind of like, yeah, you know, those type of people. And in the beginning of those friendships, I was like, this is different. But what I appreciated about it was there was still space for me to be me. And when I talked about God, I was not mocked. And vice versa. Like I didn't try to impose on them. Like I could still talk about God in my relationship and we could still have those conversations without anybody feeling like the other party was trying to impose on their beliefs. We'll have a deeper conversation about that. But it brings me to this social responsibility within our platonic friendships. And y'all know how I feel about friendships. Is it okay for us to just let our friends walk around all willy-nilly, uninformed, unregistered, and not voting? Can you be friends with somebody if they're not voting? I think fundamentally, because I'm pretty sure I have friends that I'm friends with who haven't voted, because you don't really always know people's business. So I'm sure fundamentally I could be your friend. You're going to have to hear my mouth about it. I'm going to be like, girl, why you ain't voting? What's going on? What's tea? Because I feel like it's a part of my social responsibility. And as my friend, right? Each one, reach one. It is my job to make sure that I'm helping you, mobilize and have the best life for yourself as well. But would it be a complete deal breaker? Like, would I be like, we can't be friends if you don't do it? Probably not. But you're going to hear my mouth about it. I'm going to give you shit about it. In fact, it's so funny. Just the other day, and she's going to think that this episode was inspired by her, but I promise y'all that this was the universe just making the cards align. I have a friend in my Line Sister friend group who moved recently, and she was just a little confused about whether or not she was actually registered. And I had nudged her about a month back and was like, hey, because I just moved to Atlanta, and so I was still registered in New York. So I went ahead and made sure I was registered in Georgia before the deadline. I nudged her and I was like, hey, look into it. Like, you just moved too. Make sure you're registered. At the time on the phone, she was like, oh shit, this date is 2 days away from now. And she had to work the next 2 days. So there wasn't like a lot of time for her to figure it out. I nudged her and I was like, girl, figure it out. Okay. You grown. I left her to her own accord. Inside of our group chat, I posted when I voted early, because my vote is cast, okay? I voted early and I posted to one of our other friends who's a hardcore, y'all better go vote or I'm cutting y'all off type person. And I posted it and I was like, here you go, girl, because I can't afford to be cut off. And so that opened up the conversation in the group chat. And so that friend, she said to our other friend who had just moved, she was like, you've been quiet. Everybody else has talked about their voting plan. You've been quiet. And that's when she confessed and she was like, I dropped the ball. I missed the registration deadline. I'm not voting, whatever. Y'all, the chat erupted. Everybody was appalled. And in a way, I'm like, this is a dope ass friend group where we are all appalled at the fact that one of our friends is not being socially responsible. It erupted. We actually made our friend unintentionally feel kind of bad because she was already feeling sucky about not voting. And so when that happened, everybody was just appalled. We worked it out. Turns out she was registered because when she renewed her license in that state, it automatically registered her. So here it is. She's thinking she missed the deadline when she was already registered. And so again, it's great to have these conversations so that you don't walk around misinformed or with misinformation, because literally like an hour later, she posted in the chat her sticker. She went to go vote, early vote. And so without that conversation being had in our group chat, she would have been sitting around thinking that she wasn't eligible when it's something that she actually wanted to do. And so it ended in a happy story, but it was a little rocky for a minute because we definitely kind of shunned her a little bit. We were like, how could you? And I even said to her, I was like, I nudged you. How is this not on your radar? I feel like we have to be more responsible as adults to have these things on our radar. We have priorities of things that need to get done. I knew that I needed to go and register. It was on my calendar. I knew that I had moved back within the last year. I knew that I hadn't voted since I was in New York. I needed to go make sure that that was handled. And so I felt I had the same attitude with her. I was like, well, girl, it should have been on your radar. And so we were able to get it settled, but we were very judgy. And in a way, that's a good thing, because it's like we are supposed to, again, each one reach one. You're supposed to bring your friend along with you. You're supposed to be responsible for the people you are responsible for. To be in intimate relationship with someone, be it platonic or romantic, there's a layer of responsibility that comes with that. And we should hold each other accountable. And so I don't know if that same principle transfers over into romantic partnerships. So I think, to conclude it, I wouldn't stop being your friend. But I would judge you. I wouldn't judge you, but I would, you would have to hear my mouth about it. And in terms of a romantic partner, y'all, I got so much to figure out with these men. To add another thing to the plate, I'm just like, well, damn. So to wrap up another little story, because I've been back outside. We went out. I went out with my friend Melissa last weekend, and we ended up meeting these guys. They were real cool gentlemen or whatever. And they ended up at the next spot that we went to, and they was like, "Come sit with us." So we eating, drinking, getting to know each other, whatever. They are actually law enforcement. And voting, of course, came up because it comes up these days, no matter what you do. And I'm a straight shooter. I said, "Who you voting for? Are you voting? Do you vote? Okay, do you vote? Who you voting for?" And he was like, "Trump." And I said, "I don't feel safe. I'm ready to go." And he was like, "I'm just joking. I was just doing that to get a reaction out of you." Whether or not he really was is neither here nor there, because we'll never really know. But there is a large population of people who are either completely disconnected or who are leaning towards the other side. Okay, y'all, this is Kayla coming to you from the edit. I left out an important piece of this story, so I had to insert it here. So, with this guy that I met in person who was in law enforcement, remember earlier in the episode, I was telling you I matched with a guy on an app, and he said that he had never ever voted for any president, and he was about 31 years old, right? He'd never participated in an election ever. Why, y'all, this man who was 40, right? So we're talking about a 10-year, a generational age gap at this point. Why he said the same thing to me. He said, "Nah, I'm just trolling. I wanted to get a reaction out you. I'm not voting for Trump. However, I have never participated in an election. I have never voted." And I don't know how I forgot to tell y'all this as I was sitting recording the pod. I guess I just forgot. But those two things really stood out to me because here I am with two separate men. I met them in two separate ways, one in real life, one on an app. They are technically from two different generations, yet they had the same experience in regards to voting. And so that was a key piece that I just could not leave out of this episode because it has definitely been interesting in navigating this topic, which is whether or not that is a deal breaker for me. And I still don't have the answer, but I just needed to tell y'all that piece. Okay, back to the actual episode. And so because I've been having these experiences romantically and platonically, I wanted to be able to bring it to y'all because y'all my people. And these are the types of things we talk about. And so I don't know, Sway. I don't have the answers. But I'm interested in continuing to explore this topic. And I will say this. My biggest lesson from all of this is to now enter that into the conversation. Because before this election cycle, it was not something that was significant enough for me to bring up in the get to know you process. And I think a part of me just assumed that people do it. When you have the same pedigree, right? Like when you meet people who have the same pedigree as you, maybe college educated, working professional, whatever it is, whatever your pedigree is, there's an assumption that comes along with the type of person that they are. And what this experience has taught me is that just because the person has your same pedigree, that doesn't mean they have your same values or views. And some things can slip through the cracks. And so if that's something that's important to you, you need to make sure it's in the list of get to know you questions. I need to put it up there with, do you believe in God? Do you have a relationship with your mama? Okay, and do you vote? Right? And maybe that needs to be top 3. So I'm still exploring what significance it has to me in my life. But I think it's important to ask yourself that same question and put that on the top of your own ballot, okay? To further have these conversations to figure out what truly connects us and what truly deems us compatible with a romantic partner. So I don't know, y'all. I don't know if it's a deal breaker for me, but I will say it is higher up on my get to know you conversation topics list because it's important to know where that person's mindset is to really deem compatibility and to really deem if you guys would be good partners for your future. So these past few experiences over these past couple of weeks, past couple of months really has taught me a lot about that. So y'all let me know in the comments, what is the tea? What is the tea? What do you think? Can you be friends with somebody if they ain't voting? Are you voting? Okay. And could you be in romantic relationship with someone who either doesn't vote or votes completely different than your interests? I want to know because I don't know what to do. So let's keep this conversation going down in the comments. And listen, if you have not already, this is my call to you. Get out and vote. that's my stance. That's my opinion. I do believe in voting. I'm going to continuously do everything that my ancestors fought for me to do because it is what I owe to them for all of the fighting that they did. And so anytime somebody is trying so hard for me not to have the ability to do something, I'm going to make sure I do it. And so each one, reach, run, grab your sister, your mama, your brother, make sure people are voting. Get out and vote. I will talk to y'all on the other side of this election. Whoo, child. I don't know what's going to happen. It's a scary time. But I'm glad that we were able to bring this type of conversation to the safe seat, to the scene seat. And let me know in the comments other topics and other things that you guys want to talk about regarding what's going on in your life, because y'all know I love to talk and I love having these conversations. I really think they help heal us. And in some way, I hope they help bring us closer to each other so that we can live a more limitless life where we don't have to hide behind who we really are, right? Exposing our true selves. And I truly think the way to do that is through a little talking, a little conversation. So this is the part of the pie where we go beneath the comments, and I'm going to read one from a previous video. The title of this video was "Every Season is Your Season, How to Embrace Life in the Midst of It All." And so this is from Tana Joy. She says, "I'm personally not a commenter, so thank y'all for everybody who don't be commenting, who come out of your shell to comment. I appreciate it. I'm personally not a commenter type, but I love this video. I'm in my 20s, and a lot of times my days feel like winter or spring, but recognizing each season is a better way to experience life." And so inside of that video, I talked about how basically when you're going through rough seasons, learning to embrace every season. There's a season to grow. There's a season to harvest. There's a season to bloom. And so she commented on that video, and I like it so much, and I wanted to highlight it because she's in her 20s. I don't know, late 20s, early 20s, mid 20s, but to know that these conversations are connecting with people who are younger than me, older than me, and that we're really creating a space for just some good conversation really means a lot. And so y'all leave a comment. I'm not going to stay beneath the comments too long this episode, mainly because I ain't posted in 2 weeks. Y'all notice how I just breezed on over that. I ain't dropped a new episode in a couple of weeks. Things been going on. I'm not going to bore y'all with what's been going on, but things been going on. So just pray for me, okay? Pray for me. Pray me back to this seat consistently. So yeah, instead of going beneath the comments thoroughly in this segment on this episode, I want you guys to get active in the comments. Let's talk about this topic. Let's talk about all of the topics. I want to keep the conversation going down beneath the comments. So if this is your first time ever listening, beneath the comments is where you guys actually get to talk back to me, and you have an opportunity to get your comment read on the pod. So get to commenting, okay? Y'all know I be liking to talk to y'all. All right, y'all. So that will do it for today's episode. Listen, no matter where you are in your journey in terms of figuring out your own political views, in terms of trying to be more socially responsible, educating yourself on the issues, deciding who you're going to vote for, navigating how to be responsible with making sure that people in your life vote, trying to decide whether or not people not voting is a deal breaker for you, whatever it is. The one thing that I know to be sure is that God don't want us to be divisive, okay? And so I want you to have a little peace in the process of figuring it out. No matter where you are in your journey, my wish for you, my prayer for you is that you simply find peace in the process of just figuring it out. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.